Hello, and welcome to Oakville Matters. Our city calls itself a town and tries to feel like a village, and it does when we meet each other halfway. Today, we're joined by Ward 1 Town and Regional Councillor Sean O'Meara and by our Commissioner of Corporate Services and our Treasurer, Nancy Sully. And the question for today's show is, what are we going to do to the tax increase for the 2024 fiscal year, which runs from January to December? And we are now in the middle of getting that ready. Thank you to both you, Sean and Nancy, for your service to the town and the community. And thank you for making time today. Nancy and Sean, I'd like to say that we have a new budget process as the result of a provincial law, and I hope you can agree with me that what we're going to try to do is make it look the same as before, with maybe more public consultation, and hopefully wind up with just as good or even better a budget. Sean, maybe you could start by talking about the public consultation part.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for the opportunity. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve as the 2024 budget chair under the changes that you've sort of outlined here. I do think that we've got a great tradition of reaching out to the community and trying to hear what the expectations are, but also trying to communicate some of the pressures that we have at town. So we do have a new system, a new program underway here. We're going to have sort of advisory micro committees in each ward, where yourself, Your Worship, myself, and the ward councillors will be attending sort of meetings in each ward to hear from the residents in those specific areas as to what some of their needs are and what they'd like to see, as well as engaging in those conversations with groups all across the town through the budget process that will really ramp up in September. So we've got another month or so to do some of these ward meetings, and then we'll start with our public outreach program and process this coming fall.
Great, thank you. I think that's the most interesting new feature of this budget. Nancy, maybe you could explain that staff never really stopped working on the budget, as I like to describe it. Council adopts a budget and you guys take one big breath and then start the next one. Where are you at?
So yeah, that's absolutely right, Mayor Burton. We start our budget process in early spring. So the budget got approved this past year in February. By April, we were already working on the next budget, where we have to update all of our assumptions. We look at all the pressures we know about, inflationary impacts, etc. Work with our teams on things that we know are coming forward, our infrastructure maintenance program, etc. So we do our budget kickoff with staff in early June. We bring a forecast report to council. That's where we advise council of the pressures that we know about. We get directions on the increase for the year, and really staff go away and they prepare their budgets over the summer months. From there, our finance team reviews the budget, makes sure that things are in line with the expectations and guidelines. We have business cases prepared that we have to review. And then we have several meetings with our executive leadership team to ensure that the budget addresses all of the strategic priorities that have been identified, that it is long-term fiscal sustainability, etc. And from there, we compile that budget that the public and council sees in the fall.
Yeah. There's one more source of input to the budget, and that's the monthly Community Leaders Roundtable that we've been doing ever since the fight over the power plant all those many years ago. And that's where the representatives of every residents association, and heck, any group that calls itself a group in town is able to meet with me the last Friday of every month. And we don't cover just the budget, we cover whatever's on people's minds. But for the last two, I've been asking them to consult their members and forward their budget requests. Some budget requests some years amount to, please don't raise my taxes. And there are cities that try that. Nancy, you could probably speak to how going zero for 1 year produces a bit of a bang a year or two later.
It really does. Our costs do not stay static. We are faced by the same pressures as everyone else, inflation, etc. And so if you keep it at zero for 1 year, you're just creating pent-up demand in the future years, and it just makes it that much harder going forward.
I know that before we brought in program-based performance budgeting, there would be there'd be a zero, and then there'd be a volcano. So it was a little bit hard for us residents to plan, our finances for the year. But since we brought in PB2, we pretty much kept to at or under CPI for the total tax increase, and I think that's been helpful to everybody. Now, Sean, the most interesting part of last year's budget was the traditional last day council wishes additions, and which is it's been a staple of our process for all the time for the 16 years I've been mayor. But there was a sudden, you and the rest of council had a sudden desire to move that earlier in the process. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, there's so many great ideas and concepts that get brought up by councillors on behalf of their residents sometimes, and on behalf of what they hear, and some of those take a tremendous amount of time and energy from staff to explain what they realize and what the real implications of those ideas or those programs might actually be. And I think a number of us, and even yourself, your worship, you can sometimes see the panic in the staff's eyes when ideas start getting floated at the end and said, well, staff can just give us some numbers around that over the weekend, and that can produce an 80-page document that poor staff have to pore over in a matter of days, and then leave councillors with trying to understand that, and let alone maybe going out and asking more questions of their constituents, of their community, or of staff again. So I think it serves it serves all of us, and especially staff, a little well to give them some runway to understand what may or may not come, and look at those implications as we move forward, because some of those have operating implications too, those ideas, and it's not just going to impact that year, but the years moving forward from an operational impact.
Right. So I hope you'll agree that what we've tried to do this year is to design a process where there's, it's almost, I mean, it was sort of designed to prevent surprises at the end. Would you agree that that's what we've tried to do?
I think it was. I think it definitely was, and I think that'll keep the guardrails intact for everyone.
Okay, so we have to. So the new idea is we have to have our good ideas at the start rather than at the end.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. So there's a timing question that I'm very proud of, and a weird little detail to it. We've always done our budgets for the next fiscal year before the fiscal year, except during in the year after an election. And Nancy, maybe you could explain that.
We have, so that is really best practice to have the budget approved before the start of the year. That gives staff, everyone, time to implement programs right away at the beginning of the year. In an election year, the Municipal Act states that you have to hold the budget process and approve the budget in the year of the budget. So in the case of 2023, we couldn't approve that budget until 2023. With the new process, there are some changes in the legislation under Strong Mayors Act, where it's really the clock starts ticking when the mayor releases his budget. So from the mayor's release of the budget, there's 30 days for council review and amendments. And from there, there's a veto process that takes place. So what we've really tried to do this year is incorporate and ensure we're complying with the legislation, but also ensure that we have a very open and inclusive process that hopefully will allow us to still approve that budget before the end of this year.
Right, but in the next, after the next municipal election, which is in 2026, so the budget for fiscal year 27 will be, a lot of work will be done in 26. And the legislation gives you till February to actually approve the budget. it looks like the province thought that through, and we'd be able to just adjust our present schedule a little bit in order to have the actual adoption be in January of 27, and then both these acts somehow we managed to obey two contradictory acts at the same time. Is that your sense?
That is my sense. Yes, that should work well for us.
All right. Well, it's always fun when the government gives you new rules to follow, because it's a little bit like first night for the school play. Do you know your lines yet? Let's talk about our goal of always being at or under CPI. The reason I want to raise it is we're always trying to, so there's a guessing game involved in that, which is we don't know what the CPI will be in a year. And that's the target that we're trying to stay at or under. If we were trying to stay at or under the CPI in effect while we're doing the budget, it might not look the same. Like last year, what was CPI last year?
7, 8. Yeah.
Pretty much 8%.
8%, yes.
And I think we managed to bring our budget in way under that. And now we're going to have to, our new budget target is 4.5%. And that's, I like to think that we're smoothing out, the average over a few years will still be good, but we're really having to catch up from that 8% period. Any thoughts on that?
Well, we are. So our budget increase we did not increase by 8% last year, came in well below that, but we are feeling the pressure from those increases. I think on our capital budget, when we came to council in July, we indicated we've seen 32% increases in our capital program just because of the increases in construction price index. And then the 8%, it affects all of our programs. So we have some catch up because we haven't had increases to match those contract increases. But we're also cognizant of the pressure on the public as well, as inflation has been, up and down. We do look at what the Bank of Canada is projecting or forecasting for the year following. Haven't always come in where they've been projecting. And we keep that in mind as well. So we've tried to set a target that will allow us to do a bit of that catch up that we need to make sure that we have the programs and services that the public expects, but also recognizes the pressures on everyone.
Right. So, Sean, the 2023 budget, I think, came in at an increase of 3.8 or 3.7. But let's just call it 3.8ish. And our neighbors were, so that's less than half of the inflation that we were seeing. I know that our neighbors, and your ward is right next to our neighbors in Burlington. I know they went their tax increase was almost 8%. Have you heard anything from, do any shouts or cries or moans leak over the border towards you? Like, how did their people take that?
Well, I wouldn't be able to answer how their people took it. I have a hard enough time fielding calls from our residents here in Oakville. I couldn't even imagine trying to field the calls from those residents in Burlington. But your worship, it's the same. The level of and the expectations of service in Oakville continues to be one of the highest, and we're always proud to deliver that as best as we can, but always balancing what people pay for it. And I think that's something that we've been able to thread that needle as long as I've been on council, and I know prior to my time as well under your leadership. And I think it just means we've got to tighten our belt this year to do that again, because we've got the pressures, we've got the increases, but again, the calls still come in for the service requests and to increase those service levels. I don't get too many calls saying, hey, we don't need our leaves picked up anymore, we don't need to clear the streets that quickly, we can take more time doing that. I've yet to get one of those calls.
Oh yeah, it's usually you miss some leaves.
Yeah.
Send another truck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mentioned this because in the context, next door, they're planning another 7 or 8% increase year. And I'm mentioning that because our targeted increase is 4.5, and I'm trying to make that sound better. So I'm not sure
Well,
if it'll
listen,
work, but
yeah, I'm not going to throw our neighbors under the bus there. They can answer to their residents. I think though, I think it is significant that every community is facing their own pressures and they're trying to deal with it the best they know how. I guess time will tell how that goes there and how it goes for us here.
well, I actually get around a lot, and I have not heard a whole bunch of complaining. There's been a kind of a, well, how could you expect different kind of attitude, a resignation to it rather than upset about it. In the main, they all seem to be understanding where we are with the
Yeah, I mean the
the
costs
war
are
in
what the costs
Ukraine
are.
and the global
Uh,
economy, and
No, it's everything. Everything's costing more, and I've said to a couple friends just in these discussions. At the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for it. You can pay out of your own pocket, you can pay out of your taxes, but some things have to get paid for here if we want to continue to have the life that we enjoy and that we count right up there among the best in the world.
well, I'm not done slagging neighbors. In Toronto, their default position is somebody else should pay for our
You know,
stuff. And they they build a deficit into their budget, and then they go to Queens Park and to Ottawa and say, "Hey, you owe us." So, hey, maybe we should try that.
I think we have. I don't think it's worked out so well though, unfortunately.
No, that doesn't work out too well. So now, the when are the presentations of the Nancy, you just want to talk about the way we're going to present the budget, the steps and the meetings?
So it is a little bit different this year. We presented a forecast in July that is consistent with what we've done in the past. But we will be presenting the budget twice this year. We'll be presenting the budget based on the direction of the mayor and council, I might add, as they unanimously voted for the mayor's direction. So that will come out in October 17th. The budget document will be released. We will do our overview presentation, our commissioner presentations, as we always have in the past. And there'll be opportunity for the public to provide input in there. There'll be delegation meetings. 2 of them will be held. Then be an opportunity for the budget committee to meet and make recommendation to the mayor for things that they'd like to see incorporated in the mayor's budget that will then get released on November the 20th. So there's actually 2 opportunities. First, the staff budget. I call it the staff budget, but it is based on the direction of the mayor. And there'll be public input that will feed into that. And then there's a second opportunity once the mayor releases his budget on November 20th and the clock starts ticking. There'll be another opportunity for public delegations. And again, the budget committee will meet on December the 20th to propose any amendments that they would like to the mayor's budget. And from there, either the budget will get adopted at that point, or it will carry through on the processes outlined under the strong mayor legislation.
And Sean, as a council member, you might enjoy the irony here. The effect of, so what we're doing is when I present my budget, it's going to be exactly as we've consulted together with you and council and the public. But because of Queens Park's new law, it's going to be called my budget, and so you may want to know, well, how does a mayor look at this new budget scheme where we basically are not allowed to get out of this role? I call it, this is an effort by Queens Park to play pin the tail on the donkey, where the donkey is the mayor, and the budget is now pinned to the name of the mayor rather than to council. So you're going to see me consulting just as much about as I've always had, actually more, because normally in our previous budget approach, it's me putting my 2 cents in rather than getting your 2 cents out. So it's gone from a group blame to a mayor blame game, and I hope when you're mayor someday, I hope you enjoy it as much as I think I'm going to.
Yeah, it's be careful what you wish for sometimes, not for yourself, but I know some mayors were looking for that and now they've got it. And now now they're going to own it, right? So it can be that way, unfortunately.
Well, the best face I can put on it is accountability and responsibility and transparency have been increased by Queens Park for the people who get elected as mayors. I'm predicting this will drive a whole bunch extra energy and extra effort on the part of mayors all over who have this, an extra energy and an extra amount of work at consultation and group behavior.
Well, and I mean, I think it's a great opportunity to really drive and to work on consensus building right across Ontario. I mean, there's an opportunity to sort of bring every individual councillor along and the public along and say, this is what I'm doing, but we're doing it together. And I think that always gets the best outcome possible when those types of processes are undertaken. So I'm sure you know you'll keep doing that as you have in the past.
Thank you. That's very kind. So in about 6 minutes that we have left, let's talk about some of the individual wishes that we've heard of from our fellow members over the years. Because Sean, you've been on council, you're a veteran. You've been on council since 2014, and you know the things that you worry about. We worry about active transportation. We worry about transportation. I mean, we've got major roads that I believe that you might agree with me on this, need to be expanded a little bit in order to be safer and in order to carry people more efficiently. And that's just the beginning. I know in Bronte, you and I think we share a desire to, I don't know, what's the right word, invigorate the streetscape, redesign the streetscape, make it an even more welcoming place than it is.
Bring vibrancy back, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a little issue called parking.
Yeah.
I think we both want to build a parking structure. It may be that you only want to add parking lots, but I think we need to give parking the boost now for the future that we know it's going to need.
We do, and I think there's it reminds me of the kid who goes and has a growth spurt over the summer, and all of a sudden the fall comes and no clothes fits them, and you've got to go out and get those clothes. And it feels like that's happened to Bronte in particular. We 15, 20 years ago, you could have shot a cannon through Bronte and nobody would have noticed. And now we've grown out of our clothes and we need to go shopping, and we need to make sure that we can deliver what some of the successes are that we've had down here. And I would say the same goes for Kerr Street and downtown Oakville. We've had a real resurgence of people wanting to be out, wanting to take part in our patio programs, want to get around, and want to be able to do so and enjoy the quality of life that they have. So we certainly will be looking at some of those opportunities with your help as well, from streetscapes to parking, to micro mobility, to how do we get around and move more people with less roadway, I think is a good idea too.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the prospect. The only thing holding up getting final full control of the building in the Bronte Heritage Waterfront Park is Indigenous consultation, and we I think have really, and by the province, I should add, and the feds, not by us. We don't have a problem there. So I think it's a long-held desire and goal to get that back into action, right?
It absolutely is, and I think it's a great opportunity as well to reach out to our Indigenous partners and our treaty partners and work with them and make it the best possible place that it can be, and to bring it back under local control. It seems everything tends to work a little better when it's under local control. I mean, when it's off in Ottawa or Queens Park, people tend to lose fact of what it is and what it's meant to do. So I look forward to working with our partners all across multiple levels to bring that back under local control.
Oh, hey, you've given me an idea. We should abolish Parliament, and the federal government can ask the councils of the country to vote, and be the ultimate in participatory democracy.
Yeah, they tried that January 6th in the States. It didn't work that well.
Oh no, I don't think they were trying to get council. It looked to me like a one-man rule
Well,
kind of effort.
yeah.
There's that one. So yeah, no, we there are many times when I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, no, it just reminds me of that old adage, the feds have all the money, the province has all the powers, and we've got all the problems. So it's municipal councils here. So anytime we can try and right that ship a little bit, we're always happy to lean in.
Well, you're a very active member of the FCM and the AMO, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Do you want to talk about it's the strongest push I've seen in 20 years that's now going on to increase the revenue sources of cities and towns?
Well, it is, and I mean,
Set you up.
from
We've got 9% of the revenue, and we've got 60% of the infrastructure. Just
of the problems, yeah.
The disparity is really, our source is fees and property tax, and take it from there. Let's talk about what FCM is arguing for.
Yeah, and I mean, we have these similar issues to many other industries. We want certainty, right? I mean, municipalities and our staff, everybody needs to know what we have that we can spend, and it's the parachuting in of money here and there, and the going hat in hand to levels of government saying, hey, we've got failing bridges, we've got failing water systems, and municipalities have been downloaded on from numerous levels, mostly provincial, responsibilities that have been outside a lot of the scope that we have revenue to drive to support. So we have asset management plans, we have a lot of assets, and we don't have the continuum of a funding model. So FCM is working very, very hard to lobby the federal and provincial government to get programs in place so that we have certainty, we understand what we have, and we have the means with which to support the infrastructure that our communities depend on, whether it be libraries, fire stations, roads, bridges, buses. Those all cost money, not just to operate, to maintain and replace when those times come. And I think the sooner we get certainty from those levels of government, the sooner everybody can get on with the business of governing.
Yeah, so I would interpret certainty, you're used to the word certainty, for new revenue sources.
So, you said it there, and it's your budget, your worship, so there you go.
Right. So no, but for the public's comfort, the federal and provincial governments have been gradually downloading costs and services onto the municipal sector and not following with as much money as they ought to, and there's a real push back to try to get them to send the money with the problem that we're supposed to deal with. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Sean, for taking the time today. That's all the time we have. Thank you for watching. And if you ever have questions, just call or write mayor@oakville.ca. See you next time on Oakville Matters.